What's a horror film everyone seems to like/love but you just hate with a burning passion? I am probably maybe going to get downvoted, I dunno, but I can't sit idly by and pretend that The Strangers is a good movie anymore, especially when there are so many other films in the home invasion genre that are so much better. For starters, yeah, some scenes are a bit scary. Sure. But what really bothers me the most is that the antagonists pretty much just fuck around in the smallest ways. It honestly just seems more like an inconvenience than it does scary to me. Another thing that bothers me about it is that we don't really know shit about the antagonists. You could argue that that's the point, cause anyone can be a psycho, sure. But to that I say nah, shut up. Funny Games, both the reboot and original, did so much better of a job convincing us of this, and it doesn't get nearly enough praise. The main characters actually know the antagonists, so it's arguably so much more surprising when they do decide to inflict actual psychological trauma and physical trauma on their victims. Anyways, I'm curious to see if anyone else has similar opinions on the same or on different popular films within the genre. As a huge fan of the Babadook, Midsommar, Paranormal Activity, and Insidious, I went into this thread knowing some of my favorite movies would be top comments. Wasn't disappointed, smiley face. The Babadook kinda freaked me the fuck out when I first watched it, but I know what you mean. People either love it or hate it. As a parent of an autistic child who was fighting to get support through local government services, Babadook really struck a chord with me. Chilling in more ways than one. I 100% blame the Babadook's marketing campaign. They made it seem as if it was some monster flick. I don't blame a lot of people for hating it. I don't mind the Babadook because I think its execution is good, but I have a whole rant on another thread about how much I dislike this type of movie. As someone who works in forensic psych, there's nothing I hate more than going into what is pitched as regular horror movie and finding out it's actually some sad tale of someone's broken psyche. That is my day job. Movies are for fantasy. Pisses me off. I finally got around to watching Lake Mungo a couple of months ago after seeing someone here on Reddit talk about how scary it is and, specifically, it has a build up to the scariest moment ever put to film. I kept watching, and waiting, then the credits rolled. Unfortunately, it's the original Paranormal Activity. Perhaps it's because I'd seen it after watching better found footage movies like Wreck or Blair Witch Project. Wreck is so underrated and it's a shame it's overlooked by a lot of English speakers. Have you seen the marked ones? I can't remember what installment it is in the Paranormal franchise, but it's pretty entertaining and a lot different from the first. There are several I can think of, but the most recent is The Black Coat's Daughter. Everybody loves the fuck out of it in Horrorland, so I guess I had high expectations for it. I will say that it is not a terrible movie, and I will still recommend it to people who like creepy, unsettling movies. But personally I found a lot of the plot just filler and really could have used more actual horror. Devil's Rejects. It's by far the most praised of Zombie's Firefly trilogy of films, if not his entire filmography, seemingly. People regularly praise it for its unhinged flair and how he humanizes the Fireflies, but honestly, I don't see it. The film regularly uses the same cliches he pulls back into: cheap gore, at least with the CG blood, cheap cussing, and a lot of reliance on having a solid cast to do the heavy lifting so you don't need to actually have a decent or interesting script. Humanizing the flies doesn't work, since we regularly see them committing completely irredeemable actions, sexual assault, murder, torture, defilement, etc., and getting away with it. It'd work fine if the film introduced us to Spaulding, Otis, etc. before revealing their incredible depravity. It'd make us reconsider what we, as an audience, were shown and could further the horror. The Fireflies being so able to be charismatic and human shows their capacity for manipulation and could ground them a bit. I'm thinking a bit about how someone like Wolf Creek's Mick Taylor is so effortlessly charming before he turns around and tears out your guts. It adds intellect to someone who could just be a mindless slasher. But the film never does that and instead, expects you to find these characters compelling and lovable, as Zombie himself has stated was the intent. It's like making Patrick Bateman a charismatic and enjoyable presence while simultaneously depicting the horrors he commits. It feels like making light of their actions. Hell with the gore and content of the film, it's Zombie expecting people to be horrified by their actions and also not caring enough to have that impact our view of the characters, which opens the door to a particular demon, missing the point. How many people do you know that miss the point of The Wolf of Wall Street or Taxi Driver? Neither film works to the same level as Rejects in making their characters likable, despite committing such heinous acts, and yet they're often misinterpreted by some who view their leads as more positive than people think. People have watched Wall Street and not taken to heart the point that Jordan Belfort is a terrible person whose actions are demonized on screen. It's the same with people who call Otis a badass or think Baby is fun and quirky. This and the Fireflies just sort of having weapons-grade plot armor really rubs me wrong. They never get any form of comeuppance, even when that could be interesting. The sheriff who spends half the film hunting them down gets the idiot ball for a bit and just doesn't kill them when he has all of them at his mercy. Hell, even the ending, which Zombie has definitely stated was intended to be their death, is reckoned out in 3 from Hell, revealing the massive shootout doesn't kill any of them and they escape prison much later. Both of these problems find themselves magnified in the sequel to this, the aforementioned 3 from Hell, which removes all nuance and depicts the Fireflies, sans Haig Spaulding, as both lovable protagonists and hyper-competent badasses who take out whole gangs of assassins. It's just such a strangely annoying movie for me, but I can appreciate a lot of people love it and this isn't ragging on them. If you love the Firefly films or Zombie, that's all good. I personally don't find the Friday reboot from '09 that bad and think the first Silent Hill is one of the best video game adaptations of all time. His movies are like the Cards Against Humanity of movies. They feel like a short collection of knowingly offensive things, and feel so empty. In the podcast version of History of Horror, Zombie says he gets away with doing what he does in his movies because his characters are cool. While that's certainly subjective, I fail to see what's cool about low-class sociopaths who rape, murder, and revel in terrorizing innocent victims. That said, Lords of Salem feels personal and unique and I enjoy it. Halloween 2 is also wonderfully bizarre, and I respect it as art even if it's not a particularly good movie, or Halloween movie. Everything about Zombie has always felt so phony to me. It's just leaping to extremes and shock value because there's never been any substance there. I was a huge White Zombie fan in high school, and I really liked the band's early aesthetic. It felt like he could be an interesting horror director. I got that wrong. Still seems like an ultra nice dude. I recommend The Lords of Salem if you haven't watched it. It's in my opinion his best film, visually stunning, and has nothing to do with rednecks or psychos like most of his filmography. It has Sherry Moon Zombie's best performance, although that's not saying a lot. But it seems like in this movie he really tried to do something different character archetypes, different setting, and it works wonderfully. Same here, I want to like them, and I've seen a couple of them multiple times because of it. I just watched House of 1000 Corpses to see if it was as bad as I remembered it, hoping it wasn't, and, oddly, I remembered it all pretty well. It has some cool, fun stuff, especially the Dr. Satan bits at the end, but that movie is hot garbage. This is my pick as well.